From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Emotional support makeup.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a cold case in your town that you know something about, a hot case in your town that nobody's paying attention to, where the mole will live after you've made his house into a mountain, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tipster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. And now here's your host. She's got plenty of skeletons in her closet, and they're all being used to hang those really cute blouses she found on clearance at Old Navy. Melissa Morgan.
More cowbell. Well, I guess you're aware of this because we share a closet. So
yeah,
there's only one skeleton in this house. He's in the yoga room.
Yes,
he's used for physiology to see how the bones work when you're practicing yoga. Don't act like
and what do we name? I forget what we named him. I can't remember. It was like,
was it Wallace? I don't know.
It may have been Rupert. But
Rupert, you're right. It was Rupert. Yeah.
Yeah, he's there in the sitting. He's lounging on the little sofa bed. Yeah, in the yoga room.
Yeah, he's lounging. All right.
Right.
So emotional support makeup. I just want to explain.
Yes.
Morphe, Morphe, has a new palette out called Cherry Coke, and as you can imagine, it's quite beautiful. Burgundies and browns. It's exquisite, and I know. Who cares, Melissa? Shut up.
Who doesn't like cherry Coke? I mean,
right, and it comes with a little cherry Coke blush and little lip gloss. It's a great set. Anyway, I know. So I had to order it, I did kind of. It took me 2 days. I kept going away and coming back. Anyway, I realized when it arrived, I was so excited. I actually am calling this my emotional support makeup because it soothes me to put it on and see how I look different, and it's my emotional support makeup. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's kind of weird, but
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Isn't all makeup kind of emotional support makeup?
It is for me, but this palette
ways?
is especially supportive.
All right.
I feel like I'm going to get a little vest for it.
I can't wait to see you wearing it. So
you have.
I've
had it on quite a few days this week.
Okay, I did get kind of a cherry Coke vibe from
Did you?
Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah,
okay, good. Right. Speaking of companies that make stuff that smell like things or look like things, Tipster Susan, who hates Paris Cafe, also messaged me this week, just the most nasty message. And it was a picture of Bath & Body Works mint chocolate chip milkshake candle. And even though she's the one that bought it, she messaged me and said, maybe you'll like this monstrosity. I walked into my home to the unmistakable scent of vomit. And I think if your mint chocolate chip milkshake candle smells like vomit, you got the wrong one.
Yeah.
And apparently her husband is more interesting than I can imagine because he apparently likes the scent of vomit.
Oh my God.
And she said she's willing to file divorce proceedings against him.
Well, it does sound a little extravagant. Mint chocolate chip milkshake.
Yeah.
No.
And I would also like to point out that Tipster Susan is the one who hates Paris Cafe.
Well, she's already dead to me.
Okay,
so.
Yeah, all right. I figured that would push her over the edge. And then she threatens me with, although she did, I have to say, she did write me a lovely message, even though, she hates certain candles. She said she understands that I put time and effort into the episodes and that she thinks we should rename it This Bitch Cares.
Oh, I don't think that's a good title.
You don't like that one?
Well, maybe we can make that the subtitle.
Okay. Yeah, how about Just the Tipsters, a true crime podcast, This Bitch Cares.
Right. Or maybe in parentheses.
Maybe I shouldn't take marketing ideas from Tipster Susan when she's recovering from the scent of vomit candle.
When she's in a particular mood, evidently.
Yeah. So that was a kind message from Tipster Susan, and producer Mark does not want me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm hoping a misunderstanding review by Tipster Brandy because, it was interesting. But if you would do us a favor, because sometimes people misunderstand, like Tipster Brandy, and changes her 5-star review to a 1-star review because of something I think was, again, misunderstood. If you would, whatever platform you're listening on, but especially Apple Podcasts, if you could rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. The reviews, things like that, are the way other people find us. And, I'm going to be asking you to be my street team soon, but this is just one way you can help us by, going to wherever you're listening and giving us a review or rating us or subscribing. We can't thank you enough. It means a lot to us. If you have a story idea, a case you want us to cover, please feel free to email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. And you can always call us on the Tipster hotline, 832-847-7837. And a review by Brandy, you have every right to not like a podcast. You have every right to complain about it. But, most podcasts are a labor of love, not for profit. Are there podcasts that make money? Absolutely. But a large percentage of them, it's a hobby. It's a part-time job. They do something else that contributes, to their income, or they make no money off of it at all, which is why Patreon is a wonderful thing. And it took us 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years before we started a Patreon account, and I just didn't want to do it. But I have supported other artists over the years and thought, I guess I should try this. And that's one reason that we send you swag, because I don't want to do specific content for Patreon. I'd never want to put someone's story of their life or their death behind a paywall. So if you join Patreon, you get swag. And, the only additional content, I'm not good at that. It would be like I set up a nanny cam and then there's Mark and Siren taking a nap or something. So,
yeah, don't do that.
I can't.
She's usually, when she's sleeping next to me, she's
on her back with her legs in the air.
Legs all akimbo.
It would look kind of.
I'm in my underwear and I don't have the covers on. Please.
Okay.
That would lose us more listeners than we'd gain.
So I just want to say to Tipster Brandy, I hope you find your way back to us. She said she unsubscribes because of all of the shit talking I do about other podcasts. I don't think I do. The week that she wrote the review, I had said another podcast did an amazing, fantastic job on the Jason Ellis case. Many outlets have done a fantastic job, and I didn't know that I could add anything to it, but it's getting people talking, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I'm not sure what Tipster Brandy's talking about, but I wish her the best. And don't give people 1-star reviews. If you don't like them, there's only 2 million podcasts. You can always find another. People are so much more, active about shitty reviews than good reviews. So if you are so inclined and you're, not tired of me bitching, please feel free to give us a rating or review. We'd be very grateful. So we want to thank our newest YouTube subscribers, Charles D., Honeybees, and Tiniest Squish.
Those are good names.
I love, the avatar names or nicknames for your, member name on YouTube. They're hilarious. And I have to say a special thank you to our friend Elizabeth from the Incognito Society. She has a YouTube channel and she's a warrior for justice. A lot of cases that are, Indiana based and personal to her, but, very much so the Delphi case and other cases that mean a lot to her. And she's such a outlet for those without voices. And she sent us some phenomenal candles from the Warm Glow Candle Company. And, it would make Tipster Susan vomit. One of them's called mocha beans or something. Delicious, like a banana.
Oh, are those little candles?
No, the big ones.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
She sent one big one, one little one, and one scented coffee beans or something. So amazingly delicious, which reminds me, ask me why it took me a few minutes to get into the studio.
Hey, Melissa, why did it take you a few minutes to get into the studio?
Well, producer Mark, I was on my way down the hall and noticed some white bits on the hall runner and found a tiny metallic tea light holder that your daughter, Siren Marie Morgan Humphreys, had availed of its wax and chewed the fuck out of it. So,
oh, sweet. All right.
Speaking of candles, I swear to God, this podcast is not called Candle Talk. I'm getting
it's becoming that way.
I know.
But
candles
it's
and makeup.
Candles and makeup.
And murder.
Hey, candles, makeup, and murder. That sounds like the name of a podcast.
Do you know who would listen to that?
A lot of people.
No one.
A lot of people would.
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So yeah, she didn't eat. I think she just toothed it. I got the tea light up. I think it fell out of the Buddha. I don't know how it got on the floor. She's not tall enough to reach it.
I know how. Now you're going to get mad at me.
I see.
The other morning, I got up to go to work at 4:30 a.m. and it was dark, and I was stumbling because I just woke up. And I banged into the wall.
Yes, you did.
And fortunately, the Buddha, which had a little necklace thing wrapped around it.
Yes, it does.
It fell into my arms. Otherwise, it would have broken. And because I knocked it off. And I guess I didn't see the tea light. I'm sorry.
Well, just to let you know, that particular Buddha has been through some shit. When we had the flooring replaced up here, Dan or his son Dylan knocked Buddha off, and I'm downstairs and I hear, Buddha lost his head.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what the fuck? But they fixed it, and you can't tell. So,
oh God, I'm really glad I caught
injury.
It now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Please don't kill Buddha twice, is all I'm saying.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I think that's a very good. Please don't kill the Buddha. But I think there are tea lights in those Buddha candle holders, darling, and our dog is close to the floor.
Okay, so, I didn't see the tea light holder.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, good. I did. I had to sweep little bits of melty wax off. Anyway, so update number 1. Daniel Sirhan was in court this week for the case of the missing Will Sirhan, and it was Thursday, August 26th. Well, he wasn't actually there because he had tested positive for COVID and he still had 3 more days of quarantine. But it was a non-starter anyway. His defense counsel, Andrew Flyer, said he would be asking for a continuance now, even though the next proceeding is September 10th. So
it's just more delays.
Yep. And he has that right. He has 60 days, which means, the September 20th date, which is the next one, will, as producer Mark is trying to explain to me, will probably be the start of jury selection.
Well, if it's the start of the trial, which is
that's what it's supposed to be,
right? Then that's the first thing that will happen is the jury selection. Yeah.
So I know you have hypothesized that the case may not actually get started or the hearing may not get started until the beginning of 2022. Oh,
not if the jury selection is going to start on September 20th. I would be wrong about that.
Okay.
Because if it's probably going to. I don't know how much leeway the judge is going to give the attorneys as far as jury selection goes. In state court, which is what this is, attorneys have much more leeway to invalidate a juror and exclude them. So the jury selection could take a very long time, depending on how much the prosecution or the defense thinks that the jurors are going to be fair, or actually thinks that the jurors are more likely to go their way.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. But jury selection is always interesting. So
I bet.
If you can attend, I think you'd find it very fascinating.
Well, I plan on being there on the 20th for sure. I'm not sure about the 10th since, like I said, the defense counsel already said I'm going to be asking for the continuance. I'm just letting you know now. So there's that. Update 2. Tipster Austin commented on YouTube that was pretty interesting to him that the FBI is in the Woodlawn Springs area of Kentucky looking at property owned by Brooks Houck. And it actually happened on the day that the episode came out about Jason Ellis.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they spent 3 days. They might be a 4th day, but Brooks, was a lot of things, but I guess he met Crystal when she was collecting rents for him. He had various properties, and he, I guess, moved into developing. And they tore up a driveway. They broke up the concrete.
No kidding.
Nope, no kidding.
Wow.
Yep. I just, I know there's so much more going on behind the scenes. It's been 5 years now, and I know there's always more going on in any investigation than we can imagine and more than we'll ever know. But I'm even more grateful to those who do this work. It takes a village to close a case like this, especially with a missing person. It just, anyway. So the third and final update is we're announcing finally the contest. We received 2 beautiful, they're versatile. You can either use them as a purse charm or as a keychain, and they are gorgeous. And there are attachments for both. You can again make it a purse charm or a keychain. They're beautiful, one of a kind. I will be posting pictures on all of the social media. So the contest starts August 31st and goes through midnight of September 21st. So you have 3 weeks, and then we'll announce the winner on September 28th.
What is the design? What does it look like? I mean, what are they shaped to look like?
It's like charms. I wish I could describe it to you better. There's incredible charms. She used resin and sequins and our logo and skulls. And I mean...
That sounds great.
No, they're incredibly beautiful. So what I'm going to ask of you, and I never usually ask anything. Oh, and we're throwing in a little bonus. There's a $20 Target gift card.
Wow.
And honestly, it's like you can keep one for your purse. You could keep one for your keychain. You could keep one for yourself. Like I said last week, give one to your best friend or your mom or your sister. So this contest, we're going to ask a little work from you, Tipsters. And I know this is something some of you have already done, but it has to be between August 31st and September 21st. You need to do this. If you can tag us on social media and maybe tag a friend who you think might like the podcast. And I know a lot of you have already done this to the extreme, but if you can think of one person in your life, in your circle, that might like the podcast, that you could tell, if there's a particular case or episode that you think that a friend might be interested in, tag them and tag us. You know where we are on Facebook. It's just the Tip-Sters podcast. We have a Facebook page. On Instagram, it's JT Tip-Sters. On Twitter, it's JT Tip-Sters Pod. So on any of the platforms, if you just include a friend, and again, I know some of you have already done this, and you're wonderful. And those of you, by the way, that are patrons, you get a double entry. That was actually a lovely suggestion by the artist, who we're just keeping her anonymous now. We'll probably let you know who she is later, but it was a suggestion of hers that if someone is a patron on Patreon, that they get 2 entries. So all the patrons will get a double entry. And in the next 3 weeks, if you tag us on any of your social media and a friend and say, hey, check out this podcast or something like that, we would be very grateful. And if you are not on social media, we don't want you to feel like you're not able to enter. So here's all you have to do is email us at jttipsters@gmail.com and tell us, hey, I'd like to be entered. If you're not very active on social media, if there's a lot of people who just don't want to be on any of the platforms, and I get it. I'm an old lady, and I would probably only really pay attention to Facebook if I were not, if I did not have this podcast. But you need to kind of, let as many people know as you can about the podcast. So that's
when you email us, just copy a friend,
Well, yeah, or maybe just say, I told my imaginary friend about your podcast. Can I be in the contest now? That's totally fine.
All right.
I hate making people work for things. You don't know what it's taken me. It's taken Tipster Richard and another tipster to say, why don't you do that? And I'm like, I don't want to ask people.
Well, as the producer of the podcast, I say thank you, Richard, et al. Sometimes you gotta ask your friends to do a little work, little homework.
Yeah, I don't want to.
And you're getting some good stuff here. I mean, I didn't realize we were throwing in a $20 Target gift card.
Yeah, because I'm a giver.
You are.
Yeah, but once you see the keychains or purse charms, you're going to be like, oh my God. They're almost exquisitely perfect for Halloween too. But they're, the charms that the artist added they're all sterling and they're beautiful. And I don't even want to put a price on it. Just know you're getting a really good deal. So all you have to do is tell somebody, hey, I listened to this podcast. You might want to consider it. Or, hey, look at this case. This might be up your alley. And we will put all your names in a hat. Last time the contest, I put it in a ball cap, and we ran out of room, so I'm gonna have to get I'll use a bowl. I don't know what I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be a hat. So anyway.
Well, we can use a pot.
That'd be great. We can
use the big giant pot that I make oatmeal
Dutch
in.
oven. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh, no, not that kind of Dutch oven. Yeah. That would be awesome. So this week's episode is, if you haven't guessed already, kind of layered. And some things happened this week that add another layer, like baklava, to it. This case was suggested by Tipster Susan of the vomit-smelling candles. And I was, vaguely aware of the case. I was, a lot of things happened apparently in Northern Kentucky in 1980, and I was, 15. So I didn't know a lot. But I know the name, and I know the family, and I went to school with some of this person's family members. And his name is Paul Kordenbrock. And I really don't even want to highlight his name because I'll be honest with you, I'm sitting here looking at a picture of him and I would like to punch his fucking smug face. And that's really not a good way to start. But he literally could qualify as a serial killer or a spree killer. He killed 3 people within a 15-hour time frame and attempted to kill a 4th. And I'm wavering badly. Producer Mark and I have spoken about this topic the last few days. It's become a big deal in my brain, and I'm trying to dissect it. And it's about sentence reform and, this journey that Paul Kordenbrock was on. And again, I hate even saying his name. I wish, but unfortunately it's about him. So on January 5th of 1980, 5 days into a new year, into 1980, it's right after Christmas, Paul Kordenbrock and Michael Kruz walk into a gas station, kill the 2 employees, and within 15 hours, the next morning at 9:30 a.m. And here's the part that's just, I'm trying so hard to hold in I really am unhappy with this man. 15 hours later, they walk into a Western Auto store and kill Stanley Allen and wound Bill Thompson. Now, Stanley Allen was the manager. Bill Thompson was an employee. Western Auto was a pretty fascinating store. I'm not sure if they had them.
Oh, they did.
Okay.
Oh, that was the only real auto parts store when I was a kid. They didn't have, O'Reilly or AutoZone or any of the. Western Auto was the auto parts store.
I'm happy to hear they were everywhere because I knew there were, at the time in 1980, there were 1,200 company stores across the country and 850 franchises. Now, Western Auto, I went into Western Auto many times with my grandfather. Parts for lawnmowers. Honestly, this company, was started by George Pepperdine, who, founded Pepperdine University. And I
didn't know that.
Yeah. He actually was sort of the originator of franchises. He really did kind of start that system. And he was really big in the 1920s in mail order, mail order parts. And I don't know how many times I went with my grandfather into a Western Auto on Dixie Highway in Florence. And it's the same one that, where Paul Kordenbrock did this terrible thing. And this, the details make me, every detail I read, I get more angry. They made Stanley Allen and Bill Thompson lie face down behind the register and shot, I think he shot Stanley in the head and Bill in the neck. And Bill survived. Stanley did not. And no one knew, of course, that he had, was the same, wonderful person who killed Rick Jones and Timothy Maines 15 hours earlier. They took 15 guns and no money. 15 guns.
So they sold guns. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they stole 15. Oh, yeah. They did. And the, manager and the employee of this Western Auto, Stanley and Bill, I found an old interview on YouTube, and grown men wearing John Deere hats standing outside of the Western Auto, tearing up, saying these guys never met a stranger. They knew everyone who walked in. And speaking of that, Paul Kordenbrock and Michael Kruz had come in the previous 2 days looking at guns.
Oh, okay.
They cased the place.
Wow.
For 2 days looking for guns. They had time to change their mind. They didn't have to do this. When you are so premeditated, and this is going to bring me to, the defense and what they said. It's like, oh, he was on a drug-fueled, binge. Tough shit. I'm getting very angry. I'm getting very angry about this, about excuses. And I'm battling inside myself on the daily, I'm battling myself every day, covering these cases. And I know there's no excuse for murder. And that could mean sex, money, or revenge. Just there's no, unless it's self-defense, there's no excuse for murder. And when you hear that a 24-year-old man and a 21-year-old man spend time and effort and energy to plan something awful that changes not just the life that you have taken or the lives, as Paul Kordenbrock was the trigger man in all of the shootings. You don't just change that life. It's such a ripple effect. It's such a ripple effect. And it has changed Paul Kordenbrock's life. I'm just not sure that's enough. So I don't care that they were on a drug-fueled binge. I don't. Does it change your neuropsychology? Yes. Does it, make you not responsible for what you're doing? No. You're still responsible. And all I can say is thank God they were caught pretty immediately and put in a lineup for 15 witnesses. And they were, named in other robberies where people weren't murdered. But it doesn't matter.
So were they responsible for that whole streak?
No. Not all of it, at least. At least that's not proven. So in 1980, the Boone County PD or Sheriff's Department or whatever was called the Boone County Felony Squad, which I thought was a very unusual name. And there was an interview with the chief, and they really felt that Paul Kordenbrock and Michael Kruz were, a violent robbery team. So they do eventually get indicted. The trial is fascinating because the DA wants to ask for the death penalty. And there is a lot that goes on, which we're going to get to in a minute, in a death penalty case. So Paul Kordenbrock was convicted of murder, criminal attempted murder, because Bill Thompson lived, and robbery first degree. So 3 murders, and attempted murder and robbery, which gets you, like 20 years or something. So he was given the death penalty. I guess he and Michael Kruz were tried separately because honestly, it's very hard to find any information on Michael Kruz. It is established that Paul Kordenbrock was the trigger man. He pled not guilty and was found guilty. And the reason I'm telling you he pled not guilty is because this comes up 10 years after his indictment. He actually admits to killing the other 2. So he is a 24-year-old not good person. I lived a few miles, maybe 4 or 5 miles from the Kordenbrocks. Big white farmhouse. Again, he's quite a bit older than I am. He's now 66. So it was probably his younger siblings that I knew. I think they were a large family. And I can't help it. It's his picture. It's, they update your picture like every 2 years in the penitentiaries in the Kentucky State Pen. And he's got a smirk. And it could just be the way his mouth is shaped. But I look at his picture and I want to take something sharp and stab it. And I want to throw up on him. I can't even... I know, that's really helpful at this point. Very, very helpful. So they're indicted, and it's a big deal. I have to say, I've never heard of this before, but the prosecuting attorney said, I want to thank the jurors for listening so closely. It's difficult to find anyone guilty, but especially guilty of murder. I also want to praise Judge Neese for his conduct. The judge spent many long hours outside the courtroom developing the jury instructions and working on other matters. I mean, I think that's pretty important that, everyone takes this kind of thing, this responsibility, you take it seriously. That was during the trial. So it was July of 1981 from the Cincinnati Enquirer. It was a big deal to ask for the death penalty. And I understand why that happened. I had no idea that Kentucky used the electric chair. Absolutely no idea. So in 1988, as you can see, this has been a pretty protracted legal battle. A U.S. District Court judge ruled that the Kentucky state death penalty is constitutional, even though there was a ruling in, I guess, 76 that said it wasn't. I mean, it's such a labyrinth of things to climb through to understand what happened. There's a few things I'm going to read in a moment that I'm not sure it's going to bring any more clarity. I think that it's interesting that the judge said the sole function of this court is to determine whether the state court proceedings were tainted by federal constitutional violation, and cut through the barrage of technicalities, that the defense counsel put up. There's no doubt that Paul Kordenbrock brutally killed a man at the time in cold blood and attempted to kill another. And he killed two others 15 hours before that. A constitutional penalty has been imposed by fair procedures, and this court has no authority to interfere. So, a circuit court judge said the death penalty is constitutional. So then in 91, 10 years after, finally, Paul Kordenbrock agrees to plead guilty to killing Timothy Main and Rick Jones in the gas station robbery. And they gave him life in prison. They switched the conviction from death row to life in prison.
Okay.
Because he finally admitted, I guess they could close the case if he finally admitted, because he pled not guilty to the service station murders.
Right.
And then they gave him life in prison instead. Now, they had already sentenced him to die because of the Western Auto murder.
Right. Did they commute that sentence down to life as well? So they did. Okay. That's very unusual.
It was. And, I'm sorry, but I had asked Tipster Susan, what, because she's, lives in the area, and she knew the family, her older siblings knew the family. I was like, what was the motive? I mean, 15 guns? They didn't even take anything out of the register? And she said, I have always heard his father tried to justify his behavior by saying he fell on the ice as a kid and hit his head and he's never been the same.
Oh, come on.
And the defense was he was, in quotes, high on drugs, close quote. High on drugs. That's your defense. I was high on drugs.
Yeah.
So 3 people die. 1 man could have died. Is that enough? And now Paul Kordenbrock thinks that he should be given some sort of special dispensation.
Oh, really?
Because he spent 40 years in prison. I know. I'm trying.
Is he saying he's a different man now that he's found Christ? And all that usual stuff that they say.
Here we go. You are correct, sir. So, the Kentucky Supreme Court Chief Justice Robert Stevens says, every possibility of irreversible error needs to be eliminated. If we're going to review it, we're going to review the whole record. And Paul Kordenbrock is working from behind bars, saying that, yes, he is a different person, that the death penalty should be abolished.
Yeah, but I thought his death penalty sentence was commuted down to life in prison.
It was.
Why did he care about the death penalty?
It was, well, he is worried about his brothers in prison, Mark.
I see.
Only by the grace of God did I get out of death row. There are many problems with the death penalty, but perhaps the mixed message, killing someone because they've killed someone, is the most obvious. There's some big problems with it. This is something that's been broken since we've had it. How do you get the public to open up its eyes and see a better way to handle it than, let's kill this guy because he killed someone else?
So he's become a prisoner advocate. He's become an advocate for those sentenced to death because he's now a good guy and he cares.
There but for the grace of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what happened yesterday. Sirhan Sirhan came before the parole board, and it was recommended that he be given parole for the 1968 murder of Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
This just happened?
Yesterday.
Which is August 27th.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. They actually recommended that he be paroled.
Yes. There's more. He's 77. I get it. He has a brother who lives in Pasadena who will accept him, who says he wants to be responsible and help his brother after, spending the majority of his adult life in prison. He was 26 when he killed Robert Kennedy, and Paul Kordenbrock was 24 when he killed 3 and attempted to kill 4 people. And I have to say, this is remarkable. I don't know that I would be able to feel this way. But Douglas Kennedy, who was a toddler when his father was gunned down, said during a virtual hearing yesterday, "I'm overwhelmed just being able to view Mr. Sirhan face to face. I think I've lived my life both in fear of him and his name in one way or another, and I'm grateful today to see him as a human being worthy of compassion and love."
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me, that tears me up. But I do believe that the only people who really can give forgiveness are the family. And if that's the way he feels, I think that carries weight.
It's fascinating that that's the exact wording you used, because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has in the past actually written letters of support for Sirhan's release, said he was moved when he first met Sirhan in person. He wept, clutched my hands, and asked for forgiveness. So you're right. I mean, to the extent you can be right, that, a greater power than us has the, option to forgive Sirhan Sirhan. So does Robert Kennedy's family. It was a 2-person panel that recommended parole, but of course the decision isn't final yet.
Well, it has to be approved by the governor, I think.
I know.
But the governor we have right now will probably approve it.
He has not. I know, I don't want to bring politics into this, but he has, surprisingly for a Democrat, has not granted parole to.
Understood. And that is true. Here, though, you've got one who is Robert Kennedy Jr., who is still very powerful in Democratic politics,
and and human rights.
Right. So,
So
I think, and I think that Governor Newsom will probably be swayed. I mean, just from the political calculation. And I'm not even getting into politics either. I just think politics are what politics are.
They are.
And I think that it's a very good chance he'll get paroled. See, I think if the family says don't execute him, that carries weight. But I don't think he should be paroled I think he should serve a life sentence.
I'm with you. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I wasn't sure how you felt. I knew how I felt, but I don't believe he should be let out. I'm sorry, I don't. So this was his 16th parole hearing, and this was the very first time that the prosecutors did not oppose his release, and that's because our LA County District Attorney, George Gascon, is out of his fucking mind, and he did not make any of his prosecutors available to be there during the parole hearing. That way, he's basically entering a neutral plea, just like I'm going to say this, and I'm almost as angry at him as I am at Paul Kordenbrock. And yet he's right. He says the role of the prosecutor ends at sentencing. Well, let me just say this, DA Gascon, before I start crying again. I'm going to point to people like LA DA John Lewin and Orange County DA Matt Murphy. People who go above and beyond just getting a sentence. People who follow up to make sure when a sentence is handed down, someone is held accountable for taking someone's life. This makes me so angry right now, and I'm trying hard to be compassionate. So here's Sirhan Sirhan's defense. He had never had hard alcohol, and he drank a whole bunch of alcohol. So he was out of his mind on alcohol, the same way Paul Kordenbrock was out of his mind on drugs.
Yeah.
He shot, and I did not know this, 6 people. 5 survived.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. It was a huge, crowded hallway.
Oh, I know. It was the kitchen of
it was coming out of the kitchen. It was right coming out of the
Ambassador
kitchen.
Hotel. I know there were other people there, but I didn't know Robert Kennedy was the only fatality. So now, just to add one more wonderful layer, the parole board asks questions to Sirhan Sirhan, which, by the way, I have to take a left turn here. One of my favorite things ever in the universe was an episode of Saturday Night Live from maybe 1975. Chevy Chase, during the news, said that Sirhan Sirhan had a parole hearing, and he petitioned the court to change his name to Sirhan Sirhan Sirhan. So
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like 12 or something, and I'm rolling around laughing and crying. Anyway, so yeah, the parole board asks Sirhan what was his life like at the age of 24, and he, was a Palestinian who was a refugee when he was 4 years old, and his attorney is like, he witnessed atrocities that only most of us have seen in movies. Okay, and I'm sure it sounds terrible. Now here's another layer. The parole board asks him about his ties to the Middle East and how he feels about things there. And he starts to cry, and he says, the misery that those people are experiencing is painful. He calls them kindred spirits and said it wouldn't be human if he was not moved by their plight. He also said he's a Christian and meditates regularly. And he took responsibility for taking the gun to the hotel and said that he, vows to remain alcohol free. And he said, I'm learning to manage my anger. It's a process. You're 77.
At 77.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Fuck you.
That's kind of what I say. I mean, I'm sorry, Mr. Sirhan. His brother said, look, I want to be there for him. So what would likely happen, it's still about 90 days out. What would happen is he'd be released to a halfway house. And then after 6 months, he would be released to his brother and he could live with him. And the most vocal person on the parole board said, I'm trying to establish by asking you these questions if you're still the same person. And he immediately says, no, I'm not. No, I am not. He said, I'm grateful for having my life spared from the gas chamber. I value my life and I would never put myself in jeopardy again. You have my pledge. I will always look to safety and peace and nonviolence. And I'm going to say that that's a better response than Paul Kordenbrock. Isn't our system flawed, killing someone for killing someone? Paul Kordenbrock is speaking still only about himself. Even if he has had his death sentence commuted, he's still...
And even though he's saying he's speaking on behalf of other death row prisoners.
Yes, he's speaking, he's still... I'm sorry, and maybe I'm wrong, and I don't care. It's my podcast, I'm going to say what I want. I feel like what he's saying is very selfish. And I feel like at least what Sirhan is saying is he's focusing outward and not on himself. Are either of these men's words true? Maybe. Should their sentences, be changed? No. We love and adore organizations like Pause for Life that, train inmates to train dogs. And we have our beautiful siren from Pause for Life. Sentences that I feel were ridiculously placed, multiple life sentences for a nonviolent felony. That's different. It's hard for me to say this. Can people change? Yes. Can someone who murders someone in a drug-fueled frenzy be repentant? Yes. Should they be let out if they're given a life sentence? I can't answer that because I'm conflicted on a daily basis. And one thing I know for sure is that my opinion doesn't matter much. But what we're going to do here on Just the Tip-Sters is hope that if we bring the stories of the victims to light, if we talk about these things, maybe we get other people talking or thinking about this. I'm a very black and white person. I have a hard time in the gray. And this is one topic I'm really charcoal gray on. I don't know. And maybe you don't know. But maybe together we can figure something out that's good for everyone. And more cowbell.
If you'd like to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/Just the Tipsters.